Thanks for joining in today. Today I'm going to be talking about the case of Alissa Turney. Alissa Turney was a 17-year-old girl at the time of her disappearance. It was May 17th, 2001, and the day started like any other. She was getting ready for her last day of junior year in high school. She went to school here in Phoenix. Her father, Mike, picked her up early from school, and they went to lunch. They ended up having an argument about Alissa wanting more freedom. Mike ended up dropping her off at home, and that was the last she was seen. Now, before I go into more detail, I want to give you a background story of Alissa and her family. So at the age of 3, Alissa's mother, Barbara, married Mike Turney. He was a former sheriff's deputy. Alissa had an older brother named John, and he had a different biological father. He was 10 years old at the time. Mike had 3 boys from a previous marriage. Once Barbara and Mike got married, they had a daughter named Sarah, and Mike adopted Alissa. However, in 1993, Barbara was diagnosed with cancer, and she ended up dying in 1994. Alissa was just 8 years old. From then on, it was always Mike, Alissa, and Sarah. Mike always described Alissa as being a handful and rebellious. Other people described her as being just a normal teen who was interested in being social and having a boyfriend more than doing schoolwork. However, when people were asked about Mike Turney, they would always say that he was very, very strict. Alissa was always so worried about him going through her things. Mike was constantly checking up on her. He actually installed surveillance cameras inside and outside of his home and recorded all of the phone calls on the house phone. He even followed her to work to make sure she was actually getting there.
Jack in the Box.
You got me in trouble, Dad.
How'd I do that?
Cause that freaking asshole Mike, he looks and he goes, "That's illegal. He can't do that." And I was like, "That's my dad." Still, there's signs posted on the office. I was like my dad's gonna do anything. I was like, "It's my first job. My dad's video cameraing me." He's like, "So that's illegal. Tell him not to do that." I was like, "He's a prick." Hate that guy.
Which one's Mike? The one I was talking to you?
No, the one, I don't know, the one that drives that nice ass Mustang. Let me drive.
Which one's Mike? What do we do?
The relationship between Mike and Alissa was completely different than the relationship between him and Sarah. In his eyes, Sarah could do no wrong and she got away with everything and could have whatever she wanted. He would give her alcohol. He even encouraged her to skip school. He always said the reason he treated them different was due to Alissa being susceptible to falling into the wrong crowd. Go ahead and take a listen to this next clip.
Hit the red button.
What?
Hit the red button now.
I don't want to. I don't record.
Hit the red button.
Yeah. I'm recording.
Dad! Dad! Dad's a pervert.
Yes, sir. Give me the camera now. And you're still recording. And Alissa is stupid moron. Alissa's a stupid moron.
So as you can see, there was something really odd about their relationship. And although Sarah was young, she knew something was a little weird. Now going back to the day that Alissa went missing. So after she stormed off into her room, Mike said he had to go pick up Sarah and run some errands. However, Mike never picked up Sarah from school. Instead, Sarah was sitting at school waiting for him, and when he didn't show up, she walked home with a friend. As she got home, she realized there was no one there, so she left a message saying that she would be at her friend's house. Mike finally picked up Sarah, and he told her that Alissa wasn't answering her phone, so he advised Sarah to also call, but she never answered. Once Mike and Sarah got home, they found Alissa's phone in her room and a note next to her phone. And the note read, "Dad and Sarah, when you dropped me off at school today, I realized I really am going to California. Sarah, you said you wanted me gone. Now you have it. Dad, I took $300 from you. That's why I saved my money. Alissa." So at this point, Sarah was just completely heartbroken that her sister left, but she was not surprised. Alissa had an aunt that lived in California, and she'd always talked about living with her before. Mike called the police to file a missing persons report. He informed them that he and Alissa had a fight and that she left a note saying that she ran away to California to be with her aunt. Now, if you guys remember in the beginning, I mentioned Mike was a former sheriff's deputy. And I'm sure when he contacted the police, he knew they weren't going to look for her due to her being considered a runaway. So all the police did was open a missing persons case, but no real investigation actually happened. A week later, Mike claimed that he got a phone call from a California number and that it was Alissa calling to cuss him out and tell him that she was never coming back and was staying in California. So Mike, for some odd reason, wanted to prove that this call was actually happened. So he was able to obtain the records from AT&T to show that a call did come in from California early in the morning. However, she never did try and get in contact with anyone in her family or her friends or even her boyfriend at the time, which is a little odd. So this is a little odd. It was said that Mike told close family and friends that something bad happened to her. He even mentioned that when he called the police, they weren't going to do anything about it, so he had to be the one to be the hero. He was even making frequent trips to California to search for Alissa. So he was basically telling two different stories. He was telling the runaway story to the police, and then he was telling his family that something bad happened to her. So the case actually went cold, and it wasn't until 7 years later when it was brought up again, when a serial killer by the name of Thomas Heimer was sentenced to life in Florida for the murder of Sandra Goodman back in 2003. He claimed he was the one who killed Alissa. However, some of the things that he was saying just didn't add up to her case, so the police discovered that he was lying. However, this did bring up the case of Alissa again to the cops. So the cops began looking into the missing persons case, and they found out that Alissa actually had $1,800 in her bank account that had never been touched. But if you remember, back in the letter she wrote before she left, she said she took $300 from her dad. Now, Why would she take $300 from her dad but never touch the money that was in her bank account? That just doesn't make sense. Also, her social security number was never used, which means that she never tried to get a job, she never tried to go back to school. So this is when the cops realized that something bad happened to Alissa, and their suspect was Mike Turney. So the cops showed up at his door and began questioning him. There they learned about the surveillance camera that Mike installed. He said he put them up for safety, and he provided the cops with the tapes of Alissa and her boyfriend and some of the men that she had met from work. The cops were curious about the footage of the day Alissa went missing. However, Mike said that he sat there and looked through 8 hours of footage but didn't see anything relevant. They even asked him about the phone recording, in which he replied it wasn't working that day. How convenient. So this is when he decided that he was being very uncooperative, and so they were to contact Sarah if they ended up having any questions. The next day, Sarah was informed to go to the police station for some questions. While she was there, the cops searched her home, and this is when they found homemade tapes of Alissa and contracts that Mike made Alissa sign, and one of these included a document dated a year before Alissa went missing, claiming that he never abused her. The cops started questioning her friends, and they confirmed that Alissa would tell them that he would attempt to assault her when she was younger. Her boyfriend, John, also brought up that Alissa told him Mike took her out of school early one day and drove her to a deserted area where he tried to assault her. They even confirmed that no one had heard from her in years. Also, I want to mention, when they were questioning her boyfriend, John, he actually told cops that the day Alissa went missing, she went into his class and told him that her dad was picking her up early for lunch and that she would see him later. She even mentioned to her friends that she was going to be at the end of the school year party that night. No one in her family actually knew Mike had picked Alissa up early from school, and they didn't find out until years later from the interview from 2020. On December 11th, 2008, Mike was arrested and taken into custody because he was found armed with 2 guns and clips and a knife while collecting his mail. After his arrest, the cops searched his home once more, and this is when they found 26 pipe bombs, a ton of firearms, and homemade silencers. Along with all of this, they actually found a 98-page manifesto, which he called The Diary of a Madman Martyr. In this manifesto, he planned a terror attack on the electrical union where he used to work. He believes that 2 men from the union were following Alissa, and they were the ones who took her when she actually did run away. He was then sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. The cops were going to prosecute Mike for Alissa's murder. However, after he was released from his 10-year sentence, he was never prosecuted. So the case is really odd, and everyone believes that Mike did it, even his own daughter, Sarah. She has been fighting for Alissa for years. She's trying to find anything about what happened to her, and she's trying to get the truth out of her dad. She's been fighting with the police, trying to get them to arrest him, but all they're telling her is the only thing she can do is get media exposure. So this is what she's been doing. She actually has a petition to try and get Mike arrested. I'm going to go ahead and place the link below if you would like to sign that and help her out. She's really close to her goal, and we're actually hoping we can get justice for Alissa. Thank you for listening, and make sure you subscribe. That way you can get notified about my next video. Bye!